next lesson in how to listen so people will talk. Today's topic is going to be some sensitive scenarios concerning grief. I'm Regina Sanders. I'm a certified life coach, received my accreditation through IACCC and Pastor Wayne Sutton. I'm coming to you live from Live Your Best Life Coaching. And I am so honored, so pleased that you have chosen to be here with me today. In every life, there will be seasons of grief. As friends, we have the extraordinary privilege of walking alongside and offering empathy to one who is grieving. I love the example Jesus set by empathizing when Lazarus died. Jesus cried with Martha and Mary. No sermon, no pious platitudes, simply listening and crying, as we find in John 11:35 through 36. I myself have experienced great loss in my life. Our first daughter, Lauren, was stillborn at 9 months. Our third child, Austin, was born with only half a heart. This was called hypoplastic left heart syndrome. He lived 16 days. As if that wasn't enough, we suffered 2 miscarriages, and when my youngest daughter was born, they nearly lost both of us because I went into liver failure. I don't say this to gain your pity, but to tell you I do greatly understand loss. But that wasn't all of it, because many well-meaning friends and family would say things like, "You can try again." Her purpose was fulfilled. Or here's the gut-wrencher. Sometimes God allows these things to happen to help draw you to Him, as if this is some punishment and you need to clean your life up. Then they try to protect you by never mentioning your child's name, as if he or she didn't exist. There's even at least you have other kids. Yes, you have other children, but they do not replace the ones you lost. These statements are very painful to a fragile heart. Now, if you've been one who has made these statements, I am not in any way trying to shame you or place guilt on you. Those are not your garments. You have never been trained in how to walk with someone through grief. And that is why we're having this video meeting today. And it's not just friends and family. Even condolence cards can stab you. Author Dee Breston wrote, "Even condolence cards can twist the knife by giving you a little sermonette. When my husband was dying and suffering incredibly, I'd open up a card that said, 'All things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to His purpose.' See Romans 8:28. And I'd want to scream, 'How insensitive!' I know the above verse is true, but there is a time to speak it and a time to be silent. High-tide grief calls for empathy, not solutions." Then there's Kathy. Kathy went through a horror that no parent ever wants to walk through. Her precious 15-year-old daughter, Alicia, was struck by a car while jogging one afternoon, and she died instantly. Kathy was asked to talk about her journey with grief and describe what was helpful and what was not. And here's what Kathy said. People insulated how to grieve. People gave trite answers to my pain. People were afraid to let me talk about Leisha. People tried to pretend that it was going to be okay. The friends who were most helpful were just present in my life. They let me talk or be quiet, weep or laugh, fight or be still. They weren't afraid to enter into the silence or wrestling. They weren't afraid to use Leisha's name or to hear yet another story about her. These people were true gifts to my soul. Isn't that what we all desire to be? True gifts to someone's soul. When your friend or loved ones are walking through the valley of grief, God will use you as you offer your listening presence, heartfelt tears, and practical acts of service. Knowing you understand and feel with them is enough. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. That's it. So when you're caring and feeding of your grieving person, leave them care packages. Be specific around how you can help, such as walking the dog, answering the phone and taking messages, those kind of things. Ask questions. Ask them about their emotions. Ask them about their loss. That validates it for them. Help them remember big dates like birthdays or doctor's appointments. Parallel play. And with this one, you're just basically listening to their stories and helping them in any way you can. Acknowledge the little dates. Maybe there was supposed to be a dance recital or something like that. Acknowledge those for them. Say their loved one's name. They need to hear it. They need to know that you haven't forgotten that loved one. Let them be sad. It's okay to be sad. And be awkward. It's okay. It's perfectly fine. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. Now let's talk about helping a child or a teen deal with anger or frustration. According to the Bible, anger is not wrong. It's a feeling. It's an emotion that God created within us. Ephesians 4:26. In previous scriptures before the Ephesians, Jesus said, "Be angry and sin not." Our focus needs to be on helping them deal with anger in an empathetic and productive way. When kids feel understood, they're more likely to receive our input on how to process their anger. It's wise to acknowledge and validate their anger and to show them what it looks like to offer understanding and forgiveness. Young children need a way to release those angry feelings because their feelings frighten them. A 2-year-old throwing a fit needs to be held tightly and reassured of your love. A young child might need to stomp her feet or have an angry dance or draw a picture. When we empathize with kids' angry feelings, we assure them of our love and our connection. Becky Harling writes, "When our 2 youngest daughters were teens, Steve was being verbally attacked by critics in our church. Beyond the normal critical emails and notes, his antagonists were spreading nasty rumors, sending hate mail to the house, and petitioning for his resignation. My girls were ticked, and rightly so. Honestly, Steve and I felt concerned that because of the ugliness they were seeing at church, they would walk away from their faith. One night, when my brother-in-law Craig was visiting, he built a fire in the backyard and invited our teens to write angry messages to the people involved. Craig told my teen girls that they could write whatever they wanted and that he wouldn't judge them for their feelings. He then invited them to toss those notes into the fire. It was a powerful exercise for my 2 teens and gave them a tangible method to release their anger. That little exercise around a fire pit ended up being a significant step towards our girls letting go of their anger and ultimately offering forgiveness. However you encourage your kids to release their anger, I caution you, don't rebuke them or shame them for feeling angry. You want to build bridges to their hearts so that they continue sharing their feelings with you. Validate their feelings and help them process how they plan to release their anger. Now, Now I'm going to give you just a little bit of homework. You know I always do. But this is to solidify the things that we've discussed and learned in this lesson. The chapter that we're studying is actually a little bit longer, but I felt like it was better to break it down in these sections because it's a lot to digest. And, we want to do it right when we're helping our friends walk through that journey of grief. So we're going to strengthen your ear by listening to God. So as you get ready to do this exercise, I didn't remind you at the beginning, but go ahead and rub your ears, get you in tuned and ready to listen and hear and understand what He's saying to you. So the first assignment is to read Psalm chapter 23, verse 4. The word comfort used here means to sigh with one who is grieving. In what ways have you personally felt comforted by God? Write them down. Put a date by it so that you can go back later and say, oh, wow, look, I was doing this exercise and this is what I remembered. Because this is going to be something that helps you with future tests and grief and trials. The next thing I want you to do is read the following verses. Each one contains the phrase, one another. Write one sentence next to each one describing the main point of the verse. Then spend a few moments reflecting on what God is speaking to you personally about empathy and one another living. Write down your thoughts. The verses are Romans chapter 12, verse 10, Galatians chapter 6, verse 2, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 31 through 32, and 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 8. Do this exercise and really hear what God is saying to you and write it down because you're going to want to reflect back on this frequently. Write it down. Thank you for joining me for today's message. If there is something that was said today that touched your heart, please let me know. You can leave a comment here. Call me at 803-580-3097 or write to me at pastor.regina.sanders@gmail.com. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May He make His face shine upon you. May He surround you with His favor as a shield and bring you His peace, which surpasses all understanding. In Jesus' name, so be it.